We are recording, darling.
Darling.
Okay, advanced witches. So the next taboo we're going to talk about is your health. So you might think, well, where's the taboo around that? And to be honest, there's kind of a few taboos around wellness. But the first one I'm going to put to you is, if you are in wellness, then you would have to have another focus, because I hear a lot about people's ailments, and it can become a massive focus for your life, which is not our natural state. Let's face it, our natural state is one of being in wellness, being in that still point. I would say still point, being in that very help me out, Erin. What word am I looking for?
Bliss.
Yeah. Which, when you're in that particular frame of mind, then dis-ease doesn't come in. Yeah. Because, and I think I've said about these books before. If you look at Louise L. Hay's book, How You Can Heal Your Life, the illnesses are very much linked to this. Yeah, what's going on in your mind. So if your mind is calm, then it stands to reason that your body would not be in dis-ease. It would be in a place of wellness. So let me just get my notes, they're all over the place. So another taboo that we're going to address is the hidden agenda of the 5 big families to control and manipulate what you can class as a medicine and what you can't, and we're going to go into that in detail, and how that's manifested into the healthcare system we've got now. Also, a question: how did we become so ill that we need to heal ourselves? That's another question. Also, why is disease on the increase? Yeah. Because, and this is a sweeping generalization, the collective consciousness very much plugs into and believes, the hype around chronic health conditions, for example. When you fully plug into and label those things, that the doctors, they go, oh, that's blah blah. When you fully plug into that, you go down that rabbit hole. And I think part of that is believing that the way of modern medicine is the only way. So pills, what have I call it, where is it? Pills, surgery or the cemetery is the only way to go. And it's not. And, we know that. In here, we know that. We know that's not the only way. So I'm just checking my notes. So we're going to address the thing about wellness at the end, because there is a parallel with the money taboo as well. Oh, that was it. That was the other one. So by choosing, because it's always a choice, remember, by choosing to fully plug into the modern medicine phenomena that is happening, what you're doing is you're abdicating responsibility for your own health. Yeah. So it's always about taking back your sovereignty, taking back your power, yeah, and knowing, because we know, it's like we have to remember this stuff that we know, yeah, this holistic healing, if you like, if that's what you want to call it. But as we know, these things, they used to be called alternative therapies. Now they're called complementary therapies because, you know, far be it from anything outside of the box that actually heals somebody. Yeah. So I'd have to ask, why is alternative therapies, why are they looked at as, you know, not viable by, you know, these the healthcare system, let's call it that. I mean, some are. Acupuncture is, you know, considered to be something you can get via your doctor, in some places. Even meditation has crept in there a little bit as well. But I think, well, we know the reason that American Medical Association and who it was funded by. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the Carnegie kind of families, yeah? Well, the Rockefellers funded the American Medical Association in order to, because they're the ones, the American Medical Association were the ones that put the kibosh on cannabis and other things as well. So what that was all about was about controlling medicine through the big pharma, through doctors, yeah. And they kind of removed the alternative medicines, and it was also a method of controlling, you know, healthcare in general. So the big pharma are connected to the Rothschilds as well. But yeah, the Rockefellers and the Carnegie Foundation founded the American Medical Association. And they actually had probably, well, no, let's say they still have, because it's still going on now, a propaganda department, yeah. So back then, what it was doing was searching out alternative methods of healthcare, and they would discredit them. Because this is something, I can't remember where we found this out in, that the medicine people, the medicine men and women, were the ones who practiced medicine. Yeah. Doctors as we know them now were known as quacks. The medicine men and women practiced medicine, and, you know, doctors, they were quacks. And somewhere along the line, it flipped around so that now people who practice alternative medicine are labelled quacks, and, you know, modern doctors are, you know, medicine people. So it's very interesting when you get into the history of how this has all happened, yeah. Because you've got licensing as well, so that licensing of the healthcare professionals, so doctors, surgeons, etc. But also the licensing of medicine, yeah. And it's all manipulated through fear. So if you don't play by the rules, you will lose your license. Bang, end of, yeah. So it's all around this very tightly controlled rules and licensing. Although, as we know, when they want to, they'll go, they'll what's the word I'm looking for? They'll rush through a drug because it serves their purpose, yeah, and they'll bypass all the normal rules. So it's definitely a huge manipulation, yeah. So I suppose the thing to kind of think about is, and I'm going to use some strong words, you know, it's almost like there's two roads, you know, going down the road of pharmaceuticals, almost being a zombie, or taking back your control and being an empowered being who knows how to heal themselves. Yeah, because drugs, scalpel and cemetery are not the only way. We know that. Have you got anything that you'd like to add to that little bit there? Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience in A&E with this. So there was I broke a bit of a taboo on the day my A&E experience. So when because there's various stages you have to go to, and then you get the nurse who says, okay, so you know, you've broken your wrist, we need to put it back, we need to traction it, yeah. And she said, because people kept saying to me, if you're in pain you can ask for drugs. I'm like, no, I don't want any. I don't want any epoxy drugs, thanks. I didn't say that obviously, but you know, it's like, no, don't want any. And so this nurse said to me, she said, you know, it's going to hurt quite a lot. Do you want some drugs? No. And she said, well, we've got gas and air. I said, yeah, that's fine. And what was really interesting is the reaction I got from both her and the other, I don't think she was a doctor or a nurse, who tractioned my wrist back into place, was that they were a bit sceptical. And and the other nurse actually said to me, you'll be screaming in a minute. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Gas in there, you know. I was tripping. It was amazing. So I think for me that broke a taboo, because you know, when they'd done it, it was like, you know, they almost couldn't quite grasp the fact that, number one, I didn't want any of their pharmaceuticals, and number two, you know, I didn't scream. I was laughing. And saying very peculiar things that I only vaguely remember. But what was really interesting is that one of the nurses actually said to me, she says, I do hope you're not going to go around telling people that we hurt you. I was like, no, don't be daft, give me a hug. Because they, you know, although they were sceptical, they did let me get on with it. But I think that it's definitely, well, I hope that it kind of changed their mind a little bit. Maybe it didn't. But I don't know, it was just really interesting that, you know, the whole thing around, well, you must take some painkillers. Well, I don't want those, thank you. So it was almost like I broke something. I broke a taboo by not taking because it would have been opiates. Absolutely, it would have been opiates. And I'm not going anywhere near that shit. Anything you'd like to say, darling?
No, I mean, my experience in modern medicine is that whenever I've had that kind of treatment, you feel very kind of ostracized from your healing. So it's almost you, the doctor, and then the disease in the middle. And I think one of the reasons why taboo is a good word for it is that you don't really understand it, because it's, once again, using lots of Latin words, Greek words, to describe the illness or disease, and your treatment is kind of sort of designed that way. And it's a very uninspiring environment. From what I've seen on TV of other hospitals in other countries, they're very similar to the hospitals in this country. So there's a definitive kind of law that says everything should be bland.
It's a bit like day centres, isn't it?
Yeah.
Always the same furniture. It's the same in hospitals. Same crappy curtains.
Yeah.
Same crappy wall colours.
So it's, you know, the whole experience is traumatizing, in the sense of, I don't even know how to describe that. It's a very weird, weird beige.
Like a grey beigey colour. It's horrible.
Yeah, to the uniforms, because once again they have to wear uniforms, to some very snobby people that are quite up themselves. We call them doctors, not all of them, but quite a lot of them think they're better than you. So you kind of you almost, like, you come with this very personal thing that you have that's manifested in your body, and there's no question of why that would manifest or how that's come about, or you know, what that might be.
Yeah.
So this is only my experience. Other people might have different experiences. But then you just enter into this very sort of, I don't know. It's like
it's almost surreal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a factory of blandness and beige, and you plonk your fear right in the middle of it, and there doesn't seem to be anything that kind of supports you or helps you to do your own healing. I say, I haven't experienced everything in healthcare, so there might be examples of where that might be inspiring. But from my own personal experience and the experiences I've spent with other people who've had quite serious health conditions, it always seems, they're very same. There's a little story of that comes to mind when we were helping someone that had a stroke, where we went to do their healing because they insisted on having us as healers, and we turned up and we were told that we must sanitize our hands
with that really awful hand sanitizer stuff. It's dreadful, absolutely awful.
And being people that we are, because we don't use that sort of stuff, said that we weren't going to sanitize our hands.
We weren't going to do that, thank you very much.
And there was a little bit of
it was
an impasse, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was there was a struggle going on, a battle.
And they wasn't going to let us in. We wasn't going to come in because we weren't going to use the sanitising gel. And we had to sit outside.
Until the person we were helping said to the staff, no, it's okay, if they've got some kind of weird disease, I'll take full responsibility for that.
Yeah. So
it's really peculiar.
I probably would, that kind of sums up some of the experiences that I've had. It's very peculiar and it's very very uninspiring, and if you don't kind of fit into that
if you don't plug into that system mold,
then it can be very taboo. Very taboo in the sense of it doesn't make sense.
It's like they can't understand why you wouldn't want their opiates. They can't understand why you wouldn't use that disgusting, horrible sanitising gel. It's very
Yeah.
Oh, it's almost alien. It's like an alien landscape. It's very strange, surreal experience.
If you use logic and reason, if that's the kind of behaviour that you get just by trying to enter a building of healing, in this case it was a rehabilitation hospital for...
And what's really interesting about that, is that they would have dogs come in for therapy, wouldn't they? As far as I know, they don't sanitise the dog's paws.
And they might do. I don't think it's their paws I want to sanitise. So, what, logic and reason says if you get that kind of friction just from two people trying to come in and do some healing to a patient, that their religion, faith, dogma, whatever it is that you want to call it, includes forms of healing with crystals, tuning forks,
hands-on healing,
colour therapy.
Yes.
Then it's not a big jump to kind of see how chemotherapy, radium therapy, and pharmaceuticals very much are part of that. And you can see why it's, they didn't make it. What do you mean they didn't make it? Well, they died. Well, they only come in for a bit of chiropody or something.
Well, it's like your mentor, isn't it? She went in the hospital for something quite routine, ended up with hospital pneumonia. Now, that is actually a strain of pneumonia that is only found in hospitals. And she was really ill, wasn't she? She thought she might not make it.
Yeah.
And do you know what got her back on track? CBD oil. Our CBD oil, I have to say.
So the taboo of modern medicine is a very beige colour. And it's very powerful at the same time because it dominates the whole of Western society, with pockets of complementary therapy and things like that. But it's not regarded as a science or anything with any teeth. Whereas if you go to the East, it's a way of life.
Yeah,
so
Chinese medicine. Well, they heal you.
They heal you, yeah. So, like another example would be, this was a dogma thing, that in most hospitals you will find a chapel, for example. So, although I don't really have a problem with that, but it kind of sums up that whole ideology of that, everyone is a Christian that goes to a hospital, so they will attend this is in this country, UK.
But what that buys into is the fact that we're all disempowered beings, which need, we need God to tell us what to do, and we need doctors to tell us what to do, and we fucking don't.
So, I think that's where the taboo is. It's in the giving away your power
Mm-hmm.
as a being that can heal. Because as soon as you do that, you expect to be brought into the kind of healing process, and you're not. So you are giving away your power.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of waiting around and waiting for appointments, waiting for phone calls, waiting for tests to come back, waiting. And even when tests come back, they don't really know how to treat things or where to.
Or when they get that thing, well, all your tests came back all right. We can't find anything wrong.
Yeah.
Well, then what is the point of it?
So when it's whenever you're coming in contact with this quite ugly form of medicine, that's kind of how you feel. You feel ugly, and it starts at birth and it finishes at death. And if you're not that way inclined, it is quite distasteful for you as a person. And I can remember experience with when I had my first child, and when that child was born, there was a big drama giving birth anyway, which some of it I thought was unnecessary. But to begin with, it was all you can give birth the way that you want. Oh, that's fantastic, and some very cool, complementary therapies that you could use, like the sitting in a pool. I can't remember what that's called.
Water birth.
Water birth and home birth, but ultimately at the end of the day, that's kind of sort of quickly went through, and then it was like, but the best way to do it is in the hospital because we've got all the equipment there. If there's a problem, so it buys into your fear.
Yes.
Now, when my daughter Emma was born, as soon as we got her home, we had the nurse come round. What they called those nurses?
I got the health visitor for a little while, but then I also had no, she was just a nurse, but I had the health visitor around because I'd had an emergency cesarean. They had to keep an eye on the wound, because I wouldn't stay in hospital. I refused to stay in hospital. I was like, no, I'm fucking going home. Disgusting food, disgusting everything, really.
And so as soon as Emma came home, the nurse came round and they brought this book of rules in which what you should be doing in this case or that case, when they should be going from liquids to solids, and I felt like I was on a course, university course. And you spend I spent the first few months worrying if I was doing it right.
Yep.
And in the end, we had to set fire. I actually set fire to it because you're forever checking it, checking it, and then I'd added to it because I bought some other books. Checking it. And what I learned from that experience is a very natural experience. Children or babies, they go through these different little stages, like teething. Sometimes their stomach's upset and they can't tell you. Midwife, that was the word. Wasn't it?
Midwife, yeah.
And the midwife, she's quite useless really, because she'd come around and go, oh well, if you're not sure, take the baby to the hospital. So you'd be at the hospital
every day, sometimes twice a day.
And it wasn't until someone said to me, look, it's all quite normal. Some of these things. I remember Emma having, I can't remember what you call it, we get sticky eyes.
Oh, conjunctivitis.
Conjunctivitis, and all her eyes were stuck together.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, how's that come out? Where is it? Because I'd never experienced anything like that. and she couldn't open her eyes. So I just bathed them in water, and just gave her lots of care. But it was, you know, it was quite scary what he was reading in the books and stuff. So I think the point that I'm making is that there's all this drama.
Yeah, it is. It's big, which is obviously centred around fear.
And I think that the drama is what makes the taboo stronger.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely.
So I suppose where I would end up is, you know, you can take it, well, you can use both. I don't think there is, as an occultist, there's always, you know, it's up to you what you use, as long as you're aware and informed as to what you're doing, what's occurring.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's a very odd energy around that whole system. And I'd like to say it's just me, but it definitely isn't. No, even to the extent of the food that they serve in hospitals. Like my stays
Yuck.
in hospitals, when I've said that, well, at the time I was vegetarian, that, you know, it's like,
How outrageous!
Well, I put something special on the menu. I think there's like one thing, probably
Oh, God knows what it'd be like now with vegan. Oh, my God.
for the 3 or 4 days that I was in there, the first time, I think I probably ate like the same meal every day. So that's all they had.
Fucking hell.
So there's a very odd thing. I think also the control of the people as well, because they're under these rules and regulations. So they, you know, they don't cuddle you, or even if they do,
they didn't have a choice when I said, "Come and give me a hug."
Even if they do cuddle you,
Yeah.
it's very kind of flip flop. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, oh my God,
Woo!
this is a bit weird.
Yeah.
Obviously, some sort of sexual
Yeah.
problem here, and to the extent where they actually can't communicate, so they can't actually say what the issue is, that they have to follow these rules.
Protocol.
And I always like that thing that a doctor will say when they completely have exhausted all their modern science, although medicine isn't a science, where they go, well, we've done all we can for you.
Cheerio, pat you on the head. Go on, off you go home.
And this is where a lot of people then get into real medicine, and they, you know, you kind of want to, you know, you realise. I think you realise when you have a serious health complaint that it's a lifestyle. So medicine or well-being is a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So it's not something you go, for like 1 day a week I'll do a bit of medicine on myself.
Yeah.
And it's a lifestyle. So, you know, it's what you eat, it's what you drink, it's how you are in the world, and you know, those things are quite insidious, like alcohol, for example, toxic situations, for example. You get a lot of those in workplaces. Certainly.
And family.
Certainly, yeah, family. Certainly in when you are driving to and from work with cars, with road rage, and how people get so angry. Religions seem to be, or dogma, seems to be at war with each other all the time. It's the Abrahamist ideologies. So it's a whole plethora of well-being that you're looking at after your, if you choose to, after your healing. So there's plenty out there, And unfortunately, when you jump to the other side of this taboo, it then starts to cost you money, because unfortunately alternatives have to fund themselves unless they get some funding from some patrons. But if you're going to have acupuncture, you can get it for free. You're going to have to pay for it, massage.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, it's an exchange of energy, but if you haven't got the money,
absolutely,
then your healthcare is not going to be the same quality as if you are a more wealthy person. So yeah, that's kind of where what I would add to that bit.
So I want to talk a little bit about the kind of energy around the manipulation of, the healthcare system. Yeah. So because we've identified that, a lot of these rules and the licensing is all around there's 3 of the big 5 families: Rockefellers, Carnegie, Rothschilds. Yeah. And I don't know if any of you ever read any David Icke. He kind of groups those kinds of people as archons. Yeah, you might have heard of that word. Do you know, I think that might have even been in Doctor Who. I'm sure the archons were in Doctor Who. Now, from a soul realignment point of view, the archons would include Dracos. Now, Dracos are a soul group whose entire goal is to manipulate the human race through fear, using lies, deception, and aggression. That is their mandate, yeah? And they actually feed off that fear because they're not plugged into divine source, so they feed off of people's fear, which is why that is perpetrated the way it is. Now, David Icke does kind of talk about, I think, lizard people, greys and stuff like that, but he generally groups them all as archons. Yeah, these very destructive, manipulative entities, for want of a better word, because it's not the people, it's what's going on, the programs that they're running, if they're a particular soul group. So I think it's really interesting to kind of see that for what it is. Yeah, I mean, I know it is very upsetting when we see trees being cut down, but that's that energy. Yeah. When when doctors go rogue and they start killing people, deliberately killing people, that's that same energy. These big pharmaceutical companies who know that their drugs do no good, but they still push them on people, and they put doctors and people like that in a situation where they don't have a choice but to push those drugs, because otherwise they'll lose their job, they'll get struck off, and all this other fear stuff. Yeah, huge fear. Yeah. Because what they do, they're very clever, and this is a thing generally around the globe, is that this kind of energy, this manipulative, destructive energy, will create a problem. Yeah, so they'll list a disease, yeah, a new disease, yeah, and then everyone starts to panic.
Cholesterol.
Everyone will start to panic, yeah? And then those same people will go, oh, here's the solution. That'll cost you X amount of money. So it's very manipulated. It is incredible when you can see that. And that's not just healthcare. That's in many aspects of this modern world that we see now. Terrorism is another one. I know I always use that one, but that is a classic example.
And I think that's where you if you're of, if you are a thinking person who genuinely cares about people, the environment, and the planet in general, then you then ask that question. You then ask the question, because that taboo comes up. Well, you mustn't question society.
Mustn't question your doctor.
Why then is our society and all these things of wellness and health are linked to the environment that we live in? Because we say that when you get a pet or animals that are in the sea and so on, or fish that are in the sea and mammals, that you know that if you damage the ecosystem, then you damage the being that lives in the ecosystem, who's part of that ecosystem. So that's what you're doing. That's when that taboo comes up. Get back. Don't ask any questions. So the first
rock the boat.
The first question that you're going to ask when people are destroying trees in their billions, when houses are being built that you couldn't even swing a cat in. It's ridiculous.
And very cheaply made as well, and cost a fortune.
People's health is being affected because they're losing their homes, because they're working all the hours under the sun. That communication, people can't seem to communicate nowadays. That people are glued to TVs or laptops or phones. That children don't seem to get childhoods anymore. There's so much violence, war, pollution, and so on and so on and so on. That you get all these taboo. So even if you get through the taboo a little bit and you actually learn the information, and then you go, actually, I'm going to go and do a bit of protesting or a bit of activism in whatever way, shape or form, that it's then, why are you doing that? You mustn't be doing that. Arrest that person. So you will arrive at that place of, the people that are in charge can't be the same as me, because I can clearly see that if you cut down a tree, that's not a good thing to do, because we actually need trees to breathe on the planet. And
Absolutely.
if you keep cutting them down, that
it's going to end up in a bit of a problem.
It's going to be a bit of a problem. So that's your taboo. You're asking that question. Why don't we have a society which very simply and logically promotes some of the wonderful things, like really good healthcare, that's not charged for. It's just supported by the people on the planet to provide the best healthcare for people that are not well. You then ask the question: why do we live in a society which has so much illness?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which has so much poverty, which has so much violence, which has so much disagreement and poor communication. These are really simple things. Healthcare is a simple thing. Communication is a simple thing. So, although they're separate issues, they are all one and the same issues of why we then end up with poor health. Because we're so stressed, we have to go and have a massage, we have to go and have acupuncture, or go to the doctor, because everybody gets flu at the same time of year. That we get flu jabs come in, and everybody's got to have flu jabs, but nonetheless we still get an epidemic of flu the following year. There doesn't seem to be any inspiration or innovation or revolution or evolution in relation to certainly in the subject that we're talking about, which is modern medicine. And even when you do see some innovation, it's like, well, that won't come out until at least 25 years down the line. Well, why is that? Because we've got to do tests on it. What, for 25 years? Oh, yeah.
Well, and that comes back to the licensing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's 10 years. 10 years altogether. I'm kind of being a bit facetious saying 25 years. But it is actually 10 years. I think they have to do something like tests for a specific drug, depending on what it is.
Well, unless they choose to rush it through, like they did, do you remember, years ago? Because I refused to put Henry through a flu jab. It was some kind of avian flu or something. And they were insisting all the kids in the schools had the flu jab. And I'm like, no, he's not having it. No, thank you. But they rushed that through. They did no testing on that whatsoever.
So I think I think where a lot of people are arriving at in relation to taboo and self-healing and the comments to do your own self-healing is that we are being made to go, well, actually, this isn't actually good enough.
Yeah.
This isn't good enough. Our healthcare isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Our social systems are not good enough in supporting vulnerable people, whether it's elderly people,
Absolutely.
whether it is homeless people, whether it is children,
Disabled people,
and people in general.
Yeah.
Sending them out to work all the time. This isn't good enough, and I think that's kind of where we're arriving. And medicine is not separate from that.
Yeah.
So people want a different form of healthcare. They want a different form of working. They want a different form of looking after the elderly and people with disabilities and homeless people. They, I believe that the internet is revolutionising that kind of whole ethos in the sense of people getting together, communicating, saying, well, why is it so difficult to have good healthcare?
Yeah.
Why is it being charged for?
Yeah.
You know, along with, well, why is our food being charged for? Why is our water being charged for? Why am I charged so much money to live in a house which I can't actually afford, and then I'm living constantly under pressure, which is then going to make me ill?
Yes.
Because I might lose my house.
Yeah.
Or home. And there's a program I was watching recently, which is quite interesting. New series that's just come out, and I watched it back in the 70s, which is the Project Blue Book. And one of the interesting things about in the 1950s was the Cold War, and one of the scenes in the film is about a very genuine lady. She's got a son, and her son has been to school, and they are all buying these sheds in which to protect themselves.
Yes.
They're a bit like the
They're basically a wooden shed.
yeah. And
I actually believe that would protect them.
these were being sold to protect people from a nuclear attack or any nuclear bombs that will be dropped on.
Yeah.
This is based in America. Dropped on America, and they were actually having air raid sirens. So they
would do drills, wouldn't they?
Do drills, and you go to your shed and sit in your shed. And that kind of sums up the whole ridiculousness of some ideas. Not all ideas, because there are some very good ideas. But some of these ideas of why a wooden shed would protect you from a nuclear bomb.
And yet,
And people pay good money for it.
the royalty and politicians and all those people that are at the top, wouldn't have a wooden shed. They'd have a bunker under the ground with its own air supply, everything. Yeah. so it doesn't make sense, does it? They're selling wooden sheds to the public, but in actual fact, the real deal is concrete bunker under the ground.
And huge ones.
Big ones, yeah.
Huge ones. The size of,
dear.
I think one of them was the size of a small
Some of
town.
them are just so massive, aren't they?
Yeah, where you can get juggernauts in and all sorts
Yeah.
of things
Yeah.
that go into these things. Anyway, the point of talking about that is when you're doing any of this great work, because you're not going to get the information, but you do get the information at the same time, because there is a contract within the Galactic Council that information should be given, but it's just that it's been taken and it's not given to us directly. So it's usually given to us through science fiction, through bastardized ideologies, which are in their purest form would work, but when you put money on it or you put other people's interpretations on it, it becomes something that it wasn't originally.
Yeah.
So, if these people, and they do exist, because we've seen the examples of some of these buildings that have been built underground,
Yes.
are quite happy to sell you a wooden
Wooden shack.
to protect you from a nuclear attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, but have built themselves this huge
Bunker.
city under the ground.
Yeah.
Then it's not a big stone's throw away to go, oh, okay, well, chemotherapy and radiotherapy, we know don't work because it destroys the immune system, and then the immune system is essential for your healing, because that's what the immune system does. It heals you.
It heals you.
So if you're taking something which is going to destroy your immune system, you're going to kill that person.
Yes.
So
who was it when you were reading yesterday? Was it Rockefeller, who up until he died, and he was 80 something when he died, he actually had a homeopathic doctor who treated him through his whole life.
Yeah, and Rockefeller was because what Rockefeller does, certainly in America, is that if you want funding for your medical college or university or whatever it is, that it has to be supporting the big farmers.
Yes.
And they have to promote the big pharma.
Yeah.
Way of working.
But that's mad. Rockefeller was using a homeopathic doctor up until the day he died. Yep.
So, getting back on track, that's kind of how we do Taboo, in the sense of we try to, because if you try to do every subject, the taboo is, because we were talking about this the other day, the taboo is there is so much professionalism and knowledge, because these people don't go to the local comprehensive. They go to top schools, they go to top universities, and they spend years learning the information and then regurgitating it. So in all those industries, whether it is modern medicine, big pharma, politics, the arms races, they learn the language of that. They walk in those circles. Like for another example is Oxford. All the students at the end of their 3-year courses are given a party where lots of people from industries come and headhunt them, and they will offer them jobs within internships and whatever else they call it. But basically, they're guaranteed a job.
Yeah.
So be under no illusion that this whole thing is fixed in regards to, and it's not just about money, it's many other different things, because religion, or mainstream religions, or dogma, is a big part of that, and it does come in those 3 dogmatic religions, which is Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. So it comes in those 3 things. So I don't think that you can do Taboo, and certainly on this particular subject, without actually bringing in some of the other bits and pieces.
So, taking back your power, so what kind of came to me yesterday, as we were finishing our notes, was there is a parallel here. So with the money taboo, you had financial magic versus money drawing magic, and there is a parallel here as well. There is your well-being magic versus that knee-jerk A&E type magic, So what does that mean? So like with the long-term financial magic, which is the cash box, you would invest in yourself on a daily basis in whatever way works for you. So I suppose for us it's about getting out and walking, it's about using sound, tuning forks, especially at the moment. So I am super focused on this, although it has healed, and I'll tell you why in a minute, how I know that. Yoga plays a big part, Kundalini, even the food that we eat is healing, So you've got like a long-term well-being magic, which every day do one thing. that kind of corresponds to well-being magic, versus that very, and people were in A&E for the most crazy things. Because we personally haven't been to a doctor. I mean, I haven't been to the doctor for fucking donkey's years, yeah? For a very long time. But it's that thing, it's like, oh, I've got a stomachache, must go to the A&E, or, oh, I don't know, an example, because I can't really give an example because we don't do it. But I suppose what would be another thing?
Well, the examples are that, like in this book, which is,
See that? Do doctors and nurses kill more people than cancer? Written by Vernon Coleman.
with a bit underneath.
Along with cancer and circulatory disease, doctors and nurses are one of our top 3 killers. They kill far more people than infections, including the flu, road accidents, terrorists and criminals put together. Every week, doctors kill more people than terrorists have killed in the last 50 years. Doctors and nurses now almost certainly kill more people than cancer.
So you don't really have to have examples because there's plenty of them out there. And Vernon Coleman is one of them. He's a very good.
No, but what I was saying was that thing around, oh, I've got something wrong with me, must go to A&E. It's that knee-jerk thing. Whereas if you have a long-term well-being plan, that going to the A&E is not going to be a thing. Unless, of course, you do something like this where, I couldn't traction that back into place myself. So, they, if you like, were the shaman who did that for me and then sent me home. Well-being magic. That would encompass many different things depending on, who you are and how you like to feel well. And one of the biggest things is creativity, because if you're not channeling divine source through your creativity, then that's going to get a bit blocked up. So creativity is a massive well-being tool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose the feeling of taboo in relation to medicine is like a lot of, if you take the money thing, taboo, you feel like you're in a vice.
Yeah.
Huge vice that is holding you. Same as medicine, you feel like you're in a vice that's holding you. And same as the next subject that we'll be talking about, in taboo, which would be sexuality or sex. That when you get to the place where you accept that you're not an academic, you accept that you are not a professional researcher, which is what Vernon Coleman is. He's a professional researcher in relation to the UK medical system. When you accept those things, you don't want to get to the point where you feel unempowered. You then use logic and reason. So logic and reason says, well, when a lot of people get traction on their healthcare or their well-being, they usually are have got the possibility of death or pain, and then the modern medicine has said, well, we can't help you anymore. So then they're willing to try anything. And this is the same with money. So if you get to the point where, and in this country, there are points where the society will turn around and say, well, we're not willing to help you anymore. Yes, purely because you're just not willing to accept some crappy job in some crappy supermarket that pays
crappy wages.
That will only employ you for 2 or 3 days a week anyway.
Yeah.
So when you get to that place, then you go, well, you either go one or two ways. Either you give up, and that's got all sorts of connotations involved with it.
Absolutely.
You might turn to drink, you might turn to drugs, you might become homeless, you might kill yourself, commit suicide, which a lot of people do. So that's certainly one road that makes you go down.
Yeah.
Or the other road, which is what we're about, and witchcraft is about, is to say, right, okay, well,
No, stop it.
what are the solution thinking
Which
things
is
I
what we were
can come
talking
up
about.
with,
Yeah, we were talking about it in the last one.
a not problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that seems to be a common denominator for people to then discover that there is this another branch of medicine, and it's usually when it comes with the possibility of death and can't be helped by modern medicine, or pain, which is another thing.
Yeah.
Or there's always these side effects from a lot of medication where you're taking the medication, so it helps with the pain, and then you're rushing to the toilet or coming out in some sort of rash.
Or like my mum, she was on the highest dose of morphine for her. It's the inflammatory arthritis she had, but where she'd had liver disease for many years, and the doctor had prescribed her these particular painkillers, which said on the label, "Do not take if you have liver disease." When she fell in the bath, she died from bleeding, internal bleeding from her liver. So,
but anyway, that breaks that for me breaks the taboo, because then you're, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I'm going to try that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same with the money. I've got nothing to lose because I haven't got any money, so I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
So it is desperate situations which then break that taboo, and then when you break that taboo, there is actually a silver lining to it, or there is something beyond this wall that's been pulled. If you don't have, if you don't have the ability to heal yourself, then you can actually learn that. So
absolutely.
And there's lots of people that will do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
But a brick wall is a brick wall. There is a way over it or a way around it.
Yeah.
In which you can heal yourself or to put yourself in a better financial situation. But it is a taboo. And that's kind of what we're looking at in these different dialogues in relation to what they are, how we get around them.
Because something else that's quite interesting, if you're talking to people about, like friends or family, about something that's going on with you, and they go, "Oh, well, you need to go to the doctor with that." It's like, to actually turn around and say, "Well, actually, no, I'm doing it myself. I'm healing it myself." It's like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You don't know what you're doing," and all that kind of bollocks, yeah. And I can actually, there's a couple of examples I can give from my own personal experience. When the psoriasis on my scalp, so now I'm kind of managing it with CBD oil at the moment. But when it was all over my scalp, and it was sore and yucky. I couldn't go outside. It hurt to go outside on a windy day because the wind would actually make it hurt. It was really bad. And I went to a doctor and said to the doctor, "Look, I've tried eliminating various things from my diet. Nothing is working. Can you please put me in touch with a nutritionist so they can actually figure out what it is that is triggering this psoriasis?" I mean, what I've learned since then is that it's something here, yeah. And he flatly said, "No, we don't do that. Have some of this toxic stuff to put on your scalp." I'm like, "No, I don't want that. Is there nothing you can do?" No. Flat no. Yeah, we're not interested. So I think what I did in the end to clear that up was I used an Ayurvedic soap. Now, it wasn't designed for hair or scalp, but what it did, it cleared up the infection, yeah, which I'd had for a good year or more. It cleared up the infection so that now all I've got is like little bits on the back of my head. It's gone from the top of my scalp, and it's just a little bit on the back of my head, which I managed through, having my hair short and using CBD salve or oil. So I took back my power on that one. And the other one was I've recently, as part of the healing that I'm doing with this, I've been doing eye exercises just because I was getting fed up with waking up in the morning and everything was blurry, or not being able to read the type or the text on the telly. It's like, it's just stupid. So I've started doing eye exercises again, yoga eye exercises, which is really interesting because when I was about 13, I was told I had an astigmatism in one eye. I can't remember which one. And I needed glasses, and I'd always need glasses. And it was a specialist optician we had to go to, which was quite a way away from where we lived, and my mum wasn't happy, huffing and puffing about it all the time. And I wore those glasses for a week. And I couldn't actually see a difference wearing the glasses or not wearing the glasses. It's like, it's money for fucking old rope, I tell you. And so I'd have them in my bag, but I never wore them. And you know what? My eyesight has been fine. But the reason I'm doing the eye exercises now is because, like I say, it's like, things would be a little blurry. So I'm like, right, I'm not having that. So I wouldn't go. My normal thing isn't to go to the opticians. It's to find a way to do that myself. Yeah. And I have to say, well, the other day we were sitting watching something, and the text, tells you what, I think it was a ghost program, wasn't it, we were watching, and I could actually read the text without it being all blurry or jumping up and down or anything like that. I could actually read it. I'm like, wow. And that's just 2 weeks of eye exercises, which only take about 5 minutes every day, most days. Quite amazing. And what I'm going to actually do, because I've got loads of stuff from when we used to actively teach yoga, I'm going to share those eye exercises with you because they're fucking amazing.
Adding on to that, be under no illusion that from our last discussion to this discussion, one of the, who invents these taboos, and it is these industries. So, be under no illusions that modern medicine is an industry.
Yes.
Be under no illusion that money is an industry. And, how do you know that? So, it's in hospitals, they employ a lot of people. Doctors, surgeries employ a lot of people. They have property. They have that land. They have the buildings. They have the pharmaceuticals, which make a lot of money. They have catering, which makes a lot of money. They have cleaning staff to clean the buildings. All underpinning the amount of people that are employed in modern Western medicine is probably staggering. And if people stop using it overnight, then there'll be an awful lot of people that are unemployed.
Yeah.
From people that clean the buildings to Harley Street consultants, and these people will be unemployed. So it is an industry.
Yeah. And
because it is an industry, it comes under capitalism. And as I said before, capitalism isn't. I don't necessarily disagree with capitalism, but it's a kind of bastardized version of the original idea of capitalism.
Yeah.
Same as communism is what you get now is a bastardized version of that.
Absolutely.
Of the original kind of idea of what communism would kind of look like. And I'm not really interested in any of that in a sense of what it is now, because it's kind of gone. You can't go back and redo that. But the modern medicine is an industry, and you are part of the fodder, the food, the mechanism, the grease that makes the wheels of that industry turn. So you've got to have people that are ill then to
Feed the system.
feed the system. You are the product of that. You are the product for that system. So how do you make people ill? Through their food, through their water, through their lifestyle,
Through adverts,
and so on, so on, so on. So although you can turn and say, well, I don't think that's true, I think it stands to reason that if you were to remove modern medicine from the system, how many people would you have on the dole? And it would be an awful lot. And I think just in that basic logical reasoning, you'd have to say, if that was to happen, that would be a catastrophe. So that can't happen. So you've got to have
the system
continuing moving. It's no good having a hospital full of nurses and doctors, cleaners and caterers, if no one's going to be turning up for it, because it's soon going to die a death. Because those people have got to be paid. You can also say universities, because universities have a lot of students that come through that study medicine. So it's a huge industry. So what that kind of I would word as an institution, and this is what Taboo comes from. So the people that run institutions are people that are very wealthy, very educated, and have gone through that system. Not everybody, because some people can come up through from the more lower echelons of society, so people not particularly wealthy. However, it is an institution, and you see that in your politics. You see that within your nutrition. You see that within war. I don't think any ordinary people will go, we'll go to war. It's usually politicians who are saying, we'll go to war.
And religions.
But then employ, these people that are so embedded in the history of their family, that are involved in the industrial
military
complex. So they've got generations that people have served in this battalion. So Sydney's going to be serving in the battalion this time. So we'll go to war, and they'll underpin that because of lies that have been basically told to these people in Malay, because they will generally go to war because they feel that it's the right thing to do. But what's behind the scene, the puppet masters, is quite it's quite sickening, actually. I don't really want to get into it too much, but certainly that's where the taboo comes from, and it is a creative thing, because as we've said before, taboo, or the noun taboo, is a social or religious custom prohibiting or restricting a particular or forbidding association with a particular person, place, or thing. Yeah. So why that's important is, if you know your words and your magic, then you're going to know how to use that on a huge scale, and that's what we're seeing at this moment in time, and it's almost overwhelming if you let it do that.
Yeah. So just to finish, I want to give you a link between modern medicine and ancient medicine. Yeah. The reason I know this is healed. Yeah. Now, I've been using the tuning forks. Yeah. And I've been using the 128 tuning fork, which it not only encourages nitric oxide to puff in the body, which keeps blood vessels elastic. Yeah. It's also used by paramedics. Paramedics will carry a 128 tuning fork, yeah, to detect fractures or breaks in bones. And how it works is, when they place the active tuning fork on an area of the body, if there's a broken bone, it will wiggle, technical term, it will wiggle the broken bone. So the person will feel pain in that area. Yeah. So all the time I've been using it, it's been little bits of pain down this bit, so down the side here, not across where it broke, but down the side here. When I was doing it yesterday, no pain. No pain. So I know this is healed. I know it. Yeah. And that comes from modern medicine, who are using ancient technology in the field, so to speak. So there you go.
What I would finish on is that we are probably the only species who have this kind of mechanism in which to heal ourselves, because animals don't have, hospitals. They don't have doctors.
Well, they have vets, don't they?
Well, but they didn't ask for the vets.
No,
Yeah.
That's true.
So if you go from that basis that elephants don't use doctors or
Yeah.
Vets.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not useful. The reason I'm not saying that they're not useful is because if they can save an animal, then that's great. However, they don't choose to do that. I've heard of elephants who are saying, "Oh, well, Mrs. Elephant there is going to have a child, so she needs to go
We
to
need
the
to book
hospital."
her into the local hospital.
Well,
Yeah.
they have their children, and all the elephants look after the child. And anyway, the point I'm saying is that we are the only ones that actually have this mechanism in place. So how do all the other? When I'd have to include dolphins in that, whales, I'd have to include giraffes, monkeys. There is not one species that has a form of medicine which is the way modern medicine is. Do they heal themselves? Yes. How do they do it? They have knowledge of what to eat,
Absolutely.
where to go in their environment.
There's that thing that elephants do, isn't there? Where they travel for miles and miles and miles to go to a cave where they scrape off its particular salt. It's a mineral, isn't it? That they need. So they'll scrape it off with the tusks and eat it.
Yeah.
That's in there. That they know that.
Well, even our doggy Satan here, he will eat grass. No idea why he eats grass.
Couch
but he
grass.
eats grass.
Yeah.
So we are the only.
When he needs to.
Yeah, we're the only species that do this, and good, bad, or indifferent. We're not having queues of different species queuing up saying, "Well, we want that." And vets. I mean, let's not even get into vets. It's a completely different thing. The only thing I'd say about vets as a healer is in their constitution, in this country, in their literature, which states that as a healer, if I am healing in a hospital, I just need the consent of the patient. But if I'm healing someone's pet, I actually have to get the consent of the vet, which is different.
Which is pretty mad, really.
Because I don't need the consent of a doctor to do that.
Yeah.
I just need the consent of the patient. But in relation, so that's not even getting the consent of the owner of that pet. That doesn't
It's
actually.
the vet.
Yeah, it's
Mad.
the vet. So, and that's actual legislation in the UK.
Yeah. Mad.
Taboo.
Taboo. Okay, so as always, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can comment below.
Oh, just do the book recommendation.
And we can, or email us, whatever. Oops. So there's that book. Very good book. Oops. Sorry. Weird thing going on with the mouse here. So there's that one. Vernon Coleman. Okay. And there are more books, but I think we covered a lot of them in the 3-lesson self-healing videos. But there's that one as well, David Icke. the perception deception, or it's all bollocks. Yes, all of it. That's the alternative title. The perception deception. It's a big old book, as you can see, and that's David Icke who wrote that one. Okay, so we're gonna go. Like I said, any questions or you want to comment on the video, then yeah, absolutely get in touch with us, start a conversation. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's it.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're just going to say, be fearless, stay witchy, and blessings all.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.